Fit and proper rules concept is all about basically making sure that people appointed or elected to boards and top management in top institutions, specifically financial institutions and others such as public companies, is a necessity, and it has been there since the beginning. All these institutions, in terms of regulators, have been putting it forward, whether it's been central banks, whether it's been regulators, whether it's been ministries of commerce or whatever in different countries that have had these fit and proper rules there. Now, the criteria for fit and proper rules is basically mainly is the integrity of the individual, the dignity of the individual, the reputation of the individual, which, by the way, easily you can get. It's not measurable, but as usually you can get a certificate of good conduct for some of these things, which is a requirement, and you will push that. However, the main criteria is the competence, and the competence is in different areas, such as the knowledge of the individual, the experience of the individual, and the skills of the individual. These are the important things. And in both the fit and proper, very important thing, we are in a part of the world where culture is an important factor and it affects a lot of things we do, including things such as board membership, such as appointments, whatever. So it gets in the way of these things. So in all the fit and proper, inheritance is not there. So it's not a question of someone, a man or a woman, sitting on a board who is good for that job and is qualified for that job, has got the skills for the job, that person, she or he, leave, that their son or daughter comes in their place. Yes, in some places, maybe that son or daughter is as good, if not better, and qualified than the parents who were sitting on the board to come on the board, but not a necessity because I am Mr. X, so my son or Mrs. X and my daughter or my son come in my place. Now that is not part of fit and proper. To the contrary, that is not fit, and that's definitely not proper to do so. So that is something that is inherent in our part of the world. We use culture to cover ourselves up. I'm sorry, you cannot have it both ways. You cannot have your cake and eat it in this time. Okay, fine. So it's a major issue, and that's been one part of the problems. The other part of the problem is that we see appointing, because he is an undersecretary, because he is a director of somewhere, a department, whatever. Oh, so we need to appoint him because the government, for argument's sake, owns percentage of something. And the government, just remember, the governments are working for the people. The governments are a tool for the people. So the people are the owners. And the government cannot just go and appoint someone because he is sitting there to sit on a board. Maybe, yes, and some of the times is the right person or she's the right person, and they have the skills, they have the knowledge, they have the experience to be there, but most of the times they're not. And let's be fair, I'm not saying anything against the people, I'm saying against the way things are done. So it's not just the concept of fit and proper, it's the concept of the people who manage the fit and proper are not fit nor proper. And that is a problem. That's why we don't see that the effectiveness of fit and proper rules affecting it. I'm just giving a big picture here. Now, the important thing is we always look bottom up. Why don't we look top down? Now, who's responsible to making sure that the entity follows fit and proper, be it a bank or be it another organization, that they follow fit and proper? It's the regulator. It's the people sitting there regulating. Now, before we start telling people that they are not fit and proper, we need to be fit and proper sitting there. Actually, the most important people to be fit and proper are the people sitting or taking the decision that any name coming forward to them is fit and proper. Now, that's another problem over the years, and it's been getting from bad to worse rather than getting from good to better. So it is a problem, and that's why it's not effective, this fit and proper. We see people get upset when I say something on this thing. I use the Arabic word minhabba wa dab, it's getting on the board. it is manhabba getting at the board. Not because anything against the individuals, but then I look at their experience, I look at their knowledge, I look at their skills. Let's forget the other side, but these three, I do not see that these people fit into that thing. I'm someone sitting outside, let alone someone at the top who's supposed to know all this and allows these things to go through. Now, why does he allow or she allows these names to go through? There could be different reasons. Reason number one, an order comes from higher authority. I'm sorry to say, an higher authority on fit and proper has no answer. And that's why regulators are independent from governments. This is very, very important, because the reason that because it's got to be an independent perspective and you look at it independently. You don't say, someone gives you a call, you're a decision maker, you get a call from someone, a higher authority, this person has to be on the board, and you just sign off and put him on the board. Now that is a problem. And guess what? That is a problem which is happening, and it's been happening, and it's happened throughout the past 30 to 40 years. It just happens all the time. And that's why one of the reasons you're going to have a major problem as we go forward. We're going to have problems with this thing. So that's one reason why an individual who's supposed to say yes or no says yes or no, depending the phone call which comes to him. The other reason is that the individual is incompetent to take a decision. And then the decision becomes basically, I like the person or I don't like the person. And there's a lot of that happening. So that is another issue. But then there is the aspect, which is another thing which is in front of us, happens all the time. The regulator says, okay, we need, for this certain position, we need 10 years experience, 15 years experience, 12 years experience. We need this minimum requirement in terms of education. We need this minimum requirement of knowledge. All that is laid out. And then when you look into implementation, what do you see? You see some of the times, yes, they follow that. But then there are the exceptions both ways. Exception is, I don't like the people who are you bringing forward, even if they have the experience, so I'll give no. Or you get someone who's supposed to be, you say, I want 15 years, somebody has only 4 years experience, and you allow him in because maybe a relative or maybe a relation or whatever it is, you accept that person, but you don't accept. That aspect, again, shows that the implementation is zero effectiveness because it becomes negative for you rather than positive. And that happens in a lot of the countries in the region. The other thing is actually us, when we talk about integrity and dignity. Now, as an example, it's a question of, which is part of corporate governance, that boards should consist of executive, non-executive directors, and independent directors. As a matter of fact, the chairman should be an independent director. Now, there's a limit for independent directors in the real world. And the limit is basically 3 terms or 2 terms, depending on 3 terms. Is it 3 terms of 3 years or 2 terms of 5 years? So it depends which part of the world you're in. But we basically, in this part of the world, we have a 3-year appointments. So 3 years. So that's a 9-year thing, which was not written, but it's there. Okay, it was known that you cannot be the independent chairman or independent directors cannot be sitting in a board longer. That they'll have 3 or 4 chief executives coming in into an institution or a bank, and you have the same independent directors for 15, 16, 20 years. It just does not make sense. So something is wrong. So as a matter of fact, the chief executives are independent and these independent directors are not independent anymore. It's just a question of logic. It's a question of common sense. So when, say in Bahrain, when suddenly all this, which, and I give full credit to the Central Bank of Bahrain, on 29th of December 2019, they actually got a ruling out saying independent directors, maximum 3 terms. Maximum 3 terms of 3 years, which is 9 years. So, and I looked at it and said, oh, this is great news, fantastic news. This is where we're really going forward. And suddenly in February and March, when the new boards were coming up, I was so surprised that some faces who have been independent directors and independent chairmen of certain institutions for the past 15 or 20 years, that they were passed through again to be directors, and the central bank gave them a tick. Now, that shows you how ineffective actually even the central bank in its own ruling was in terms of putting a ruling like that out and not doing it. But then I put the central bank on one side. Now, the individuals who are supposed to be fit and proper, supposed to have integrity, supposed to have dignity, how on earth did they put their names forward? Okay, not only because they should have known this before, that they should not be independent more than 9 years, that now there was a ruling which says they should not be there more than 9 years, and they put their names forward. So immediately there's a question on their integrity and their dignity. So to make a long answer short, the answer is, I'm sorry to say, the implementation is totally ineffective in this part of the world.